you going? What are you drinking tonight? Let's keep 'em flowing. Where do you come from? Where are you going? What are you feeling tonight? And what are you showing? Where do you come from? 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 Where are you going? What are you drinking tonight? Let's keep 'em flowing.
Hey, good morning. This is Super PlayStation Bros live coming at you. PlayStation First podcast. I'm joined as always with the enigmatic Doragon. How are you doing this morning? Afternoon.
I'm good, my man. It's afternoon over here, indeed, and it's already going dark because we're now at that time of year. But other than that, I'm doing grand, mate. I'm doing grand. How are you, my fine and fair co-host?
I'm doing all right. Coming out of some injuries, keeping busy with the new house. There's a lot of moving pieces happening, and even on some phone calls this morning. So lots happening, and sorry if I do duck for a call. But it is live right now. We're doing it live. Other than that,
Doing it live.
Trying to squeeze in some gaming here and there. We got some Call of Duty action happening. For myself, mostly just been into the zombies and some daft multiplayer. It's been a while since I've got into the PvP shooter action, but it's got me. I'm feeling a little bit of an itch of going back to it. It is part of gaming, and I'll have my fill of it for a bit until something else comes along the way. But other than that, just some basic gaming on my schedule, some Battlefield with SPG. Jumping into some Among Us every Tuesday on Cloud&Console, so be sure to check that out. And just having some fun gaming out there. How about yourself? What have you been up to and gaming on this week?
I have been getting my butt handed to me by the final Astrobot speedrun level. It is brutally difficult, this particular one. I haven't actually managed to get to the end of it yet. That's how hard it is. So lots of work to go in there. I've been doing a lot of racing gaming as well. If anybody's seen my latest video, they'll understand why. It's a review for one of those little attachments that goes on your controller and gives you a steering wheel instead of your joysticks. But so lots of racing in that one, which is always fun. I enjoy a good racing game. Outside of that, I've been on Pokemon trading card game and a new sort of tower defense game on my phone called Castle Jewels or something like that. It's an auto battle, so it's just something you could do around everything else that you're up to. So not a huge amount of game time for me, but I'm kind of enjoying that. I had a very game-intensive October, and I've got a very birthday-heavy November with many different members of both sides of the family being born in this month. So very much enjoying a bit of downtime from gaming and just seeing people and doing things. So it means when I go back, I'll enjoy it a bit more.
Very nice, very nice. Yes, I've gotten into Pokemon trading as well, and I get my wife to open up all the packs for me, and yesterday I was like, okay, I need a Charizard. So you got to come through on me. And she's like, oh, it's a lot of pressure. Then she opened it and she got the absolute epic one where it like goes through the story and the picture and the moving one. And I'm like, yes, the EX version. So that's cool. I'm building out my decks, although it takes a little bit to get all the cards you need to fill out a full deck, in my opinion. So I have a good psychic one. I have a good electric one. I mix it up with some normals. But I would. It's an interesting concept. I haven't found the right strategy to battling, but I do like collecting all the cards. It brings a lot of nostalgia.
That it does, yeah. I've got that card as well. It was one of the first ones I pulled, and I have had terrible luck since. I keep getting basics all the time and repeats. So yeah, it's not gone well for me, Pokemon trading card game. Need to see if the parents still have my old cards at home, the actual real ones, and dig them out. I think I'd have more luck and more fun.
Well, let's jump into the news we got this week. We got a bunch of news to go through, so let's get started. We got here starting with the world's biggest PlayStation trophy hunter cuts ties with Sony after a banned account. So, a little bit somber news story here. We have a gamer, Hakum, who is known for having the most platinum trophies in the world. So, this guy is always getting plats, always getting every single game. He has had his account now banned by Sony, and he claims it's because he changed his username. Well, I mean, you're not going to be surprised by why he got his account banned. He did change his username to Jihad, which is common Arabic name and is not meant to be offensive. However, different parts of the world, different organizations have used this differently. Hakum feels betrayed by Sony, stating he has spent a significant amount of money on their platform and has been a loyal customer for many years. I mean, that being said, by all the platinums he has. He has now switched to Xbox, boo, and is encouraged others to do the same, boo. Hakum feels that Microsoft offers a better customer support and is more understanding of cultural differences. Well, Hakum, you couldn't be more wrong, but I'm sorry this happened to you. And maybe don't. Why would you change your name? If you play with fire, you're gonna get burned. I don't know. That's my opinion on this. I don't see the reason why he would have changed his name, but that's what
I kind of get
happens.
both sides. I really do get both sides. He is one of the most successful trophy hunters in history, but he retired from it in 2021. So he has not been hunting trophies since 2021. He's not been making content since 2021. He's done with it. And there's obviously rules and regulations around what names you can have, what names you can't have, just to avoid any issues. And whilst that is a common Arabic name, it's the same as Adolf in German. It was once upon a time a very common German name. It's not anymore. So you have to sort of accept that if you're changing something to a name that could be offensive, that could be taken out of context or very much the wrong way, you're going to feel the wrath of the terms of service. There are multiple other reasons that Sony state the account was banned, like earning a 100-hour platinum in 2 seconds. That says hacking and such. But at the same time, as he said, some of these are from like double up trophy lists. So when I put the save game for Ghost of Tsushima onto the PlayStation 5 version, I got my platinum again in 2 seconds flat because I earned it on the PlayStation 4 version. So I can see both sides. That the challenge is an issue of scale. They can't go looking at every individual account every single day to see if they're hacking or not. If you contemplate just one account per PlayStation, which isn't the case because there's 3 accounts on my one PlayStation in this house, but if you were to say there's an account per PlayStation, you're talking 70 million accounts for just PlayStation 5 users, let alone the 140 million PlayStation 4 users. There's no way everybody could go through that individually with a human eye. There has to be some form of automation, and there have to be some things that trigger some flags that say that people are hacking, that people are cheating, are doing things untowards, breaching terms of service. And if there is a problem like this, it then needs to be addressed with Sony. Now, they released a joint statement saying they were parting ways. He's obviously kicked his dummy out of the pram very quickly. It's something I feel that they would have sorted out. He had an obvious direct line into Sony, unlike, say, you or I. But his words on Xboxes and Microsoft's customer service, having experienced both sides of them within the last year, speaking on the phone to both Microsoft and Sony, Microsoft should basically burn it all down and start again. Their customer service is terrible. So whatever he's talking about, it's just sour grapes, I feel. And he very much should accept his role in it. Sony should accept their role in it, and they should both come to an agreement again. But he's been retired for 3 years anyway, so it's a bit of a nothing statement and issue anyway. But come on.
Well, there it is. It's too bad it happened. He is a Guinness World Record holder. And it's too bad Sony didn't, spend a little bit of extra attention on this one. Could have really helped him out here and put out this fire, but at the same time, a little bit of overreaction. But let's keep moving. We're talking about Horizon now, and Guerrilla's next Horizon game is launching in 2025. However, there's a caveat to this. It's looking like this will be the mobile live service-esque game, and the hints of this game come from a job posting, which I did have the link to, but when I pull it up, it says, oops, something went wrong. So I assume they removed the job posting at the time of this podcast. So what we have here is some hints at a new chapter in Horizon, and belief that it'll be more on the mobile live service side coming in 2025. What are your thoughts on Guerrilla releasing this? Do you think that Sony is... This is going to be their last attempt? I mean, last week we talked about how they were going to give up the live service game. So, I mean, I feel like this may be the last one they try. They should have tried with Twisted Metal, but...
I don't know. Obviously, if something is close to the finish line, because we're talking about 12 at one point, weren't they? 12 live service games. If a few of those are near the finish point, you can't ask that development team to either completely change tack or turn everything around. With how long it takes to make a game, you've got to get something out the door basically when it's ready. Otherwise, you are working on no income. And as we've said before on this show, I don't know about you, but if I don't have income coming in, I can't eat. And I need to eat. So, yeah, they need to release something. If this game's ready to go, if it has the quality of the standard Guerrilla games, the standard Horizon formula, I don't see any particular problem with it. It's a game world that lends itself to a multiplayer-esque or co-op-esque type of approach. It can have that sort of Destiny feel to it. It's already got the brand recognition in Horizon. It is Guerrilla working on it, and the fact that they would be bringing it to mobile as well shows that there will be a bigger pool of possible players to get involved. The challenge faced is cost. As we saw with Concord, people were they've been accustomed to getting multiplayer only games for free and then being sold microtransactions in the title. Personally, I prefer to pay up front and then never have to pay again, but I know I'm in a minority. That lower barrier to entry appeals to a lot of people. If this game is going to cost £40, $40, something like that, even on mobile, it's going to struggle to get a foothold. If it does come in at free and then you've got in-game microtransactions, it might well get a foothold. And if it's quality, they can maybe bring a price of entry in further down the line to, like a deluxe edition or something like that. I'm very much in two minds about it. I like the mobile idea. I hope it's cross-save and cross-play, so that you can take it with you. Just throw your backbone onto your phone and take that wherever you go and have it running natively, not necessarily over the internet like on the Portal. But we've seen nothing of it. This is just a job listing saying that this is happening. It would be good to get something in 2025, especially from one of the ultra marquee titles. It's just a case of we've got a job listing. That's what we're working off. If it maintains normal Guerrilla quality, it should be great. But we need to see a lot more.
Well, It sounds like they need to start building their blocks of reputation for the next game. And luckily, they can start putting it together brick by brick with this new Horizon title, which has launched. The Lego Horizon title, to be exact. That's right, everyone. While we were away or during the last week, Horizon Adventures was released in the Lego format on PlayStation, Switch, and PC, and is now a new release in the world, and this exists, so we live in this timeline. The game appears to run identically on both base PlayStation 5 and PS5 Pro, so this is where this article steps in. Where is the PS5 Pro support? Question mark. This is a PlayStation title, and a lot of these games have been getting the PS5 boost up, but curiously, this is lacking it. Will it come later? Was it never meant to be? I mean, to be honest, in my opinion, a game like Lego doesn't need a PSS5 or a PSSR boost to really enhance the Lego brick building experience. However, you want it to be a precedent on every single game coming out of PlayStation Studios. So there is that and that. What are your thoughts on the game not having PS5 Pro support?
Basically, it doesn't need it. It's also not an internal studio. It's Lego who approached Guerrilla and Sony to make this game. Because of the collaboration they had with the actual physical Lego sets, they wanted to take that collaboration further and make a more child-friendly version of the game, which is great. And the fact it's launching on multiple different platforms means people who've never touched the Horizon franchise in the past can touch it now, get to grips with it. And maybe it bolsters that multiplayer game that's possibly coming next year, especially with that coming on multiple platforms as well. But it's not a demanding game. This isn't a game that's going to benefit from additional ray tracing, from 45% more GPU power. The PSSR doesn't need to fill in any frames when it's already running at 120 frames on the base PlayStation 5. This is where the sort of difficulty with the PS5 Pro is for a lot of people. You've got a game like this, which is a first-party title made by a third-party team that doesn't have any PS5 Pro additional bells and whistles because it's already running at the absolute maximum that it can run. And is it worth putting the additional work in to make a PS5 Pro version when 27 people worldwide at the moment are going to be able to play it with how expensive the PS5 Pro is? It's a tough one. What could you do to Astrobot on PS5 Pro to make that better? That already runs at a flawless 4K 60 frames per second on the base PS5. The only alternative option would be a flawless 4K 120. But again, if you've got the screen for that, it basically does that anyway because the screen's upscaling. It's doing what the PSSR does. There's certain games that don't need that additional benefit of that console. It will give them additional uplifts anyhow just by having that more power, but there isn't anything that needs to be coded in because the game is not that demanding. And if it's got the overhead on the base PlayStation, there's going to be even more overhead on the Pro model. It's like when we had the PS4 Pro come out. Certain games are going to get uprated for it, certain games are not. You sort of have to accept it.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like it should have that uptick. There should be some sort of PS5 Pro
In what way?
enhancement.
What would they do?
They would fill in the gaps. I'm sure it's not a consistent
What
lock.
gaps?
Even Astrobot has dips in the frame generation. It doesn't hold the 60 perfectly.
But
I mean,
this
we
game,
see Digital Foundry
this game
do
locks
tests.
60. This game is a locked 60 FPS on Nintendo Switch. The PS5's got a lot more power than the Nintendo Switch. So what are they filling in?
Well, they need to either bring in the FSSR, maybe bring in, color generations, more ray tracing, something like that, to just bring it to that next level to make the PS5 Pro relevant to all of these new titles. I just don't want to see this as a standard moving forward, saying, hey, we're actually making good enough games to run on the PS5 without any enhancement. So we're just going to keep releasing them like this without a PS5 Pro enhancement. It's like, so wait, why did I go buy a PS5 Pro? I just hope that moving forward, their games, published by their studios, made by Guerrilla Games, I mean, have the PS5 Pro
This one
upscale.
isn't, though.
Yeah,
this one isn't made by Guerrilla Games. It's made.
Guerrilla Games is listed, and
They oversaw it. They didn't actually make it. It's the same studio that always make Lego.
Studio
that is the point of it.
Gobio was also listed as a developer. They make They made the Redfall game as well as Hogwarts, and it is published by PlayStation Studios and Sony.
Yes, but it's the same as like Arrowhead and Helldivers. Arrowhead are not a PlayStation Studios. If they don't want to put the work in for a PS5 Pro patch, they're not going to put the work in for a PS5 Pro patch because it's not worth their time of day. And that's going to be different for every single developer. This game is on multiple platforms, and the PS5 Pro will be the smallest of those platforms. So if the effort that they need to put in, and they have to literally, as you're saying, create some reason to add a PS5 Pro patch, it's just a pointless endeavor for the studio.
No, Helldivers 2 is not on a PS5 Pro enhanced game. So they didn't think to lock in the 60. They didn't think to add in ray tracing. I mean, this is a PS5 Pro. This is a PlayStation published game. I'm honestly a little bit shocked.
Yeah, but it's not a PlayStation studio, so PlayStation can't turn around and say do this, because they can just turn around and go, yep, and tell them where to go.
Yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed. You would think that you would see it on the list. Same with Elden Ring. I mean, to not get a PS5 Pro.
Not a PlayStation studio. They don't have to. They're done with Elden Ring. They're moving on.
They own a portion of From Software. 15%.
Not enough to have control. Not enough to have control.
This should be something that's front of mind. This should be something they're pushing out. They're promoting heavily, and Elden Ring has a mass audience. I just would like to see it in more places than they're doing it. And
it's not going to happen. And it's going to be, you'll get it on newer games that are launching after the PS5 Pro has been out. They will probably have a PS5 Pro patch because it's easier to add it in whilst you're already making the game. You can just, let's tweak some settings. It's not quite that simple, but you get the idea. Whereas going back to older games that are 2, 3, 7 years old, it's just not worth their effort. It's not worth the money they would have to invest to do it. Even games that came out at the start of this year from smaller teams won't get PS5 Pro enhancements. I doubt we'll see a PS5 Pro enhancement for Astrobot. Like, what are they going to improve there? It's already pretty much perfect.
Just add in the ability to accept the PSSR, the frame generation, because a lock 60 FPS in all situations would
That happens at a console level. That has nothing to do with a patch in the game. That will happen regardless.
But, I mean, add in the ray tracing aspect. Bring in greater
shadows.
Why?
It's a useless tech anyway.
That's all that you're buying the system for. Like, I don't want to buy a system and then they're not supporting it on the software side.
If that's all you're buying a system for, you're a bit of a fool. Ray tracing does not make any game better. If you're buying a system for ray tracing, you're going to be very disappointed because it's not going to be this game-changing thing. Ray tracing is a pointless thing in games. It takes so much overhead to actually implement that it negatively impacts the titles. HDR is a much more impactful thing for gaming. And we saw that in that Linus Tech Tips video you had on the download last week. The HDR of the PlayStation 5 is way better than a lot of graphics cards out there. And that is a much more impactful visual thing than ray tracing. If you're buying this whole console for just ray tracing, you're going to be disappointed and a lot of money out of pocket for that disappointment.
But this was their selling point. I mean, they came on stage. They said, this is going to be a ray tracing machine. This is going to bring performance and quality together. I mean, just do that then. Do that for games. I think it's a miss. I think they need to be supporting all of their games coming out, especially if they're publishing them.
I think you're asking far too much of small development teams, and I think you're not understanding where the need or point of these things are for a lot of teams. Moving forward, you're probably not going to have this conversation, but games that have already been in development for 5-10 years and are releasing now, just after the PS5 Pro has gone live, you can't be expecting it. You just can't. It's not a realistic ask.
I mean, Hogwarts Legacy is on the list, Lies of P, Lords of the Fallen. These are all, I mean, freaking No Man's Sky, released 7 years ago. And that's on the PS5 Pro enhanced list. Jedi Survivor. I mean, these are older games. Resident Evil Village. That's a couple years back. Rift Apart. I just think it's a miss. And I think maybe they should say, I don't know. I just think all games should be PS5 Pro enhanced. If they're
then you're going to be very disappointed in life. I'm sorry to say, mate.
Yeah, and I don't think on this show I could recommend getting the PS5 Pro if they're not going to be enhancing their games they're releasing in the future. I think if they're just going to cherry pick, then you're going to get even less of a selection.
You're still going to have the overhead. You're still going to have the power that wouldn't be there otherwise. It's still going to be a generally better experience. But like I say, you can't just expect every single game to implement some PS5 Pro additionals, especially when in something like a Lego game, it doesn't matter. Ray tracing in Lego will literally do nothing other than destroy your performance. That's all it will achieve. If it's working perfectly as is, like I said, it's a locked 60 frames per second on Nintendo Switch. They literally don't need to do anything more with it. It's a perfectly optimized game in that regard. PSSR doesn't need to fill anything in, but if you're running in a performance mode where it does lower the resolution, it can fill in the gaps and make it look a bit sharper for you. So you're still going to get benefits from it. It's just not every single game is going to come with a PS5 Pro patch because they don't have to. And they don't need to.
Well, you outed yourself. You said they could do better, and if there's a gap in which they could do better and they're not doing better, they're coming up short.
I literally did not say that, but okay.
Yeah, you said that they're taking a hit on the frame rate and the graphics when you go to performance mode.
No, I said if I don't have the game, I don't know.
Okay.
I can't speak to it. I said there was a very specific word in there that mattered. If.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. PlayStation Plus catalog for November. I went to go check it out, and I guess they're releasing this a bit later on in the month. Accidentally closed my notes here. Fantastic. But we have, when are they releasing this? Jeez. But there's Dying Light 2, which I thought was a big get. Like a Dragon Ishin, and Grand Theft Auto, which is went away, was there, came back. It seems to be bouncing back and forth. We're also losing Red Dead Redemption 2 at the same time, so it seems like they're doing a Rockstar shuffle. And Digimon Survive. Does that not sound exactly like Power World? I'll have to check it out.
It's very different. Very different. A lot of the Digimon Digimon games are weird. They do not follow. Even sequels are not the same genre as one another. It's nothing like Power World. I can give you that one.
Well, it seems like literally that's what Pal World could have been called, and I would have believed it. These games are available starting. It says November 14th, but I looked for Dying Light and I couldn't find it last night. Maybe I'll have to check back. Yeah, a little bit strange. Maybe we didn't go live on my end.
Well, you're Canada. They forget you exist on a semi-regular basis. Look at the PS5 Pro shenanigans, especially the 30th anniversary stuff.
Yeah.
It is a good selection.
Supply.
It's a really good selection of games. I'm just looking now. Yeah, it is available. So I don't know whether you're just not finding it, searching for the wrong thing, spelling something wrong maybe. I don't rightly know, but it's definitely available. It's a good selection of games. There's some confusion, a bit of annoyance that GTA 5 was taken away and then came back and then was taken away and is now coming back again. It's all about licensing, and it depends what deal Rockstar sign with Sony, what deal Sony are willing to sign with Rockstar. It's the same for all of these games. Some massive highlights, though, are the Resistance games, Fall of Man and Resistance 2, finally returning to the service. You will need PlayStation Plus Premium for those ones because they're in the Classics catalog as they are PlayStation 3 titles, so they can only be cloud streamed. But incredible first person experiences from Insomniac, one of the best developers in the business. Highly recommend anybody playing them. If you've got The Sims 4, which everybody can get because it's a free-to-play game, you've got a free expansion in Island Living as well. This is now the third expansion that has been given away as part of PlayStation Plus for The Sims 4, so you're getting quite a lot of value for money just from that game alone. MotoGP, I wish that had been out before I did my video on the whole steering wheel thing. That would have been interesting to try out on that game. But yeah, it's actually a really good selection. The Like a Dragon Machine is, I feel like it's under a year old or just about a year old at this point. Some good value coming this month and quite a variety of things for folks as well. So very nice to have such a list available to us.
Yes. Although I've taken a sort of different take on PlayStation Plus of recent months. I've sort of come to terms with the fact that I don't use the service as much as I would like to, and I am coming up to the end of my service in November as I grabbed it on Black Friday, and so I'm thinking of skipping it. I think I'll just go for the online. Because really, I just get all the games that I want to play. I can't remember the last time I've gone to the game catalog and pulled something out from the past and played all the way through. So I'm going to run a little experiment, hopefully save some bucks, and I'm going to be downgrading to just online play.
That's totally fair. For someone like yourself who buys and plays their games at launch, something like PlayStation Plus that brings games after a time to its service probably isn't going to be good for you. It's like I use the library a lot, but I don't read books upon launch. I go and grab those books when I'm ready to read them, or I've got through the rest of the series, whatever the case may be. So the library is a great place for that. But if I want books on launch day, the library won't have them for me. And that's how I treat the game catalog. There's certain games, especially from the PlayStation 3 era, that I just adore playing, and I love the ease of access that the cloud gaming offers me because I have really good cloud gaming on PlayStation in my current setup. So just being able to boot those up and play them really quickly, really easily without having to dig my PlayStation 3 out is a big bonus for me. And it's a big reason I keep the premium access. The extra catalog allows me to get games that maybe I don't want to purchase, that I'm not sure I will like. It's a bit of a risk to buy, so I wait for them to come into the library scenario and I pick them up and play them then and see if I like them. And I can find some absolute gems that way. But it's not going to be for everybody. If you can get by on just PS Plus Essential, if that's all you need and you're happy just buying and playing your games at launch like you do, then yeah, save yourself some money and drop to the Essential tier. And everybody can do the same. You should be reassessing these things every single time they're coming up for renewal. It's not something that should just be an automatic rollover. Like I cancel Game Pass regularly. I'll only sign up for a month or two here and there when there's a game on it that I want to play, and then I'll immediately cancel it and just play the game in that month. So why should we not treat PS Plus exactly the same as we do any of these other subscriptions?
Hey, thank you for being on my side for once.
It's a rarity. We must make the most of it. Yes.
All right, this is a fun one. It's Black Ops time, and you know I've been playing some Black Ops, and I didn't even know that this existed. Is this a PS Vita exclusive, this Black Ops Declassified? But the fact that people are still running on this online server in Black Ops Declassified on the PlayStation Vita, I think is an insane little thing. Hey, if you have this, boot this up. People are still playing, apparently. I can't believe they'd even keep these servers up. I bet you this is going to be sad, but if you looked at the numbers, Black Ops Declassified probably has more active players than Concord when it released.
It does. It actually does. I was intrigued about this. It's harder to track because it is on the PlayStation Network, but you can see Vita accounts online and what they're playing. It seems to have a much higher concurrent player base than Concord. It's a really good game. I was really surprised by that. I have been in basically a hatred state of Call of Duty for over a decade now because I adored Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2, the originals, not the pile of crap they released a couple of years back. I absolutely adored those games. Great stories, incredible mechanics. But everything that came after it was just copy paste, and they're still copy pasting. But Black Ops Declassified in the middle of all that on the Vita was really fresh. And the fact that you could take it anywhere, I was playing it on my lunch break on 3G mobile data on my Vita at one point. Great game, incredible online lobbies, some actual quite sizable lobbies. I think you got like 8 players aside, 16 players total in a lobby. Highly recommend. And there's other PSP and PS Vita titles that are still active and going. Some of the best, you may have to jump onto private servers to be able to play them, like you currently have to do with any of the Assassin's Creed multiplayers. That there's some amazing Brotherhood servers out there that you can get into and start playing. But yeah, like dig out your old handheld consoles and get online. Gran Turismo on the PSP is still popping online regularly. Like that thing has got better races than GT7 sometimes. So it's always worth breaking out some of these older ones for gaming as we used to have it.
Sorry, the wife was talking to me there, but I do think it's pretty unique that this has a little group going on and still alive and kicking.
Go buy it, Rudix. Buy it.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. It looks
can get a
pretty
Vita
hard
for
to
about-
control. I'm not a touch
You can get a
screen player.
Vita for about $60, and then you can pick the game up for about $10. So for $70, the same price as a game on the current generation, you get a console and this. And then you can do the jailbreak and get everything. I mean, totally not pirating.
Yeah, as Jem alluded to in the chat there. I'm pretty sure if you try to get to the disc, you sound like you're hacking, bro. Anyways, photo mode returns to Tomb Raider in the remastered version launching February 14th. So unique. I like a good photo mode. I thought I'd bring this up. You're a Tomb Raider fan. All the remasters will be including photo mode. It's a unique one to throw in there, especially with a sort of a remaster. You don't expect them to really want you to take photo modes and stuff like that because of the old school playing graphics and textures, and the fact that they remaster it to make it more, true to what it was originally designed. So hey, I look forward to seeing what people come up with. Artistic people will just let their brains fly on this one. Good luck to the photographers. For me, I'd like more of the realistic games to take photo mode in, or something with a cool art style, but retro's an art style.
Yes, it 100% is, and I accidentally entered into the 1 to 3 remaster because we're getting 4 through 6, which includes Angel of Darkness, one of my actual favorite Tomb Raider games, in February. So very much looking forward to that one. The photo mode is not robust. It's not what you're used to, but it allows you to get into angles that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to get into and take pretty basic but cool screenshots of the game. It's one of those things that a lot of people ask for in titles, so why not just give it to them if it's that easy to implement, as they've already worked on it and done it for 1 through 3. Just implementing it in 4 through 6 makes perfect sense, but for those who like and appreciate a photo mode, always good to hear.
I'll have to search up one of these old school PSP commercials. I like watching the old commercials. We have a Towers of Agahazaba. Early access launches November 19th. That is tomorrow. So it's an open world building game set in the mystical island, and the early access launches tomorrow. Players can enjoy a vibrant world filled with unique creatures and ecosystem. The game allows players to build their own settlements, cultivate fantastic plants, you know what I'm saying? Wink, wink. Players can experiment with different building styles and create personalized island sanctuary. A content roadmap outlines upcoming features, including new biomes, creatures, and gameplay mechanics. The roadmap shows the developers' commitment to expanding and improving the game during early access. So, my overall thoughts on this, a little bit disappointed that we're getting early access first. I would have liked to see a fully released game. However, nothing like a nice, chill, relaxing game where you build and collect resources, and you know, it's cozy. It's cozy for a reason, and sometimes I like just sitting back and playing those titles. We'll see how it does. It's a risk, I think, to come out with a game like this, but early access is definitely going to give them a lot of leeway to make changes on the fly.
Early access can be really good. I experienced it with Temtem on PlayStation 5, and I'm glad to see that we actually get a few more coming in early access. What PlayStation tend to do is get an early access that's in a really good, nearly finished state. It's not quite like, say, the Rogue Prince of Persia on PC, where it's now completely different in November 24 than it was in June 2024 when the first bit launched. Even the art style and graphics are completely different. The gameplay is completely different. When they come to PlayStation, you're basically getting a finished item, but you get it for less money because of that early access tag on it, which is always good for a lot of people. They like to get things for a less amount of cash. I think something like this, this Towers of, I'm assuming it's Agspar. You sort of almost slur the middle, but don't quote me on that one. To have a cozy game like this on PlayStation, because they don't have an Animal Crossing type experience, there isn't that sort of tavern owner experience like you get on Steam and such, or just the medieval builder that you've got on Steam. We don't have many of those super cozy games on the PlayStation side of things, or the ones that we do have are very much shovelware. So to have something that is like actually promoted by PlayStation on the blog and has a content map, has early access, has a launch date soonish, is all a really positive thing. People like cozy games. We're in that time of year where a lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere are going to be wrapping up warm, staying inside and wanting to play something cozy because it's what most people want at this time of year. So yeah, all good. Bring it on. I think it's going to be quite good. I hope it plays as well as it looks like it will, because it looks really smooth in the trailers. And I think this is going to appeal to quite a lot of people.
Well, there you have it. We'll look forward to the early access coming out tomorrow. Not sure if they have a price associated or it'll be a free to play during early access. But I will get to find out tomorrow. Yeah, it doesn't say either or in the article here. Well, let's jump into a game that I adored this year, and that is Stellar Blade. Nier Automata DLC and photo mode launch November 20th. Now, I guess it's fine to call it DLC. I feel like there should be a difference between DLC that's just cosmetic and DLC that expands the game. Because everything I'm reading, and I keep trying to double read it, is the DLC is strictly cosmetic. And this is a collaboration with Nier Automata. And now you've got photo mode. So, pretty cool, nice addition. I mean, the game is absolutely gorgeous. One not to miss, and definitely one of my favorites this year. And, but it isn't free. I'm also reading. The DLC for the Nier Automata will cost you. It's just a little upsetting, but you know, some people did do some work into this, so you're gonna see a little bit of cost associated with this one. And
yeah, that's totally fair in my book. Like, they've done the work, they should get paid for doing the work, sort of thing. I get what you're saying on DLC, but DLC just stands for downloadable content, so it doesn't matter whether it's a costume, a music pack, an expansion. It's still downloadable content for the game, additional add-on stuff. It's not a huge amount of money. It's £3.99 here in the UK, so just £4 essentially for a costume. People spend like 20, 30, £40 in Fortnite for skins. So by comparison, it's a blooming bargain. We'll take it. But I can also understand it when you've had things like Spider-Man 2 just giving out new costumes willy-nilly for the last 6 to 8 months. It's one of those, well, why do I have to pay in this game? But obviously, different companies, different sizes, different collaboration rules, and all that sort of stuff. I think it's totally fine. And if you don't want to pay for it, you don't have to. Just don't get the costume.
Yeah, and that's all it is. I mean, if there was content associated, it'd be a little bit different. But for me, it's just a cost, and I haven't even played Nier Automata, so I don't have the connection to it as some people may.
I've played Nier, the second original one, the one with Vice and fantastic opening of the woman just yelling at him for he's a bloody idiot. I absolutely love that game. Very supernatural, sci-fi, high fantasy type scenario. I have not played Automata because it seems completely different, but everybody says it's incredible. So good for those who like it. It seems to have that Stellar Blade edge to it, or Stellar Blade has that Nier Automata edge to it. So it makes sense these two coming together. It's just a case of if you haven't played it, you've got no connection to it, there's no need to buy it, is there?
No. All right. Well, sticking with the PS5 Pro, which, by the way, Stellar Blade is PS5 Pro enhanced, as games should be in this generation. But we have some stats coming out of PS5 Pro, and it is, I would say, in different markets, it's doing differently. And I think that's to be expected. You're going to have markets treating a product differently, and PS5 Pro is fitting that mold. So we have in the US, the PS5 Pro launched with similar sales to PS4 Pro. And then in Japan, the PS5 Pro gets stronger start than PS4 did, despite being twice the price. So as you see in different markets, they're handling the product differently. No surprise there, but it seems like Japan is adapting this PS5 Pro model a lot more than the US. Any reason you can see for something like that, or par for the course? This is how it usually plays out. What are your thoughts on seeing these two?
The Pro is a much better value proposition in Japan because the price of the base PS5 has increased 3 times since launch. So yeah, I think you're only paying a little bit more. It's less than like $100 difference, 100 Canadian bucks difference between the base PS5 and the Pro. And at that price, you're a bit of a dumbass if you don't go for the Pro, essentially. So it's just people picking that over the base console with how expensive the base console is. It's also a case of in other markets, like if you look in the UK, we're already discounting the thing because it isn't selling. That's how expensive it is. It depends on your economy, your market, what people are after, and all that sort of stuff. For us here in the UK, life is incredibly expensive. £699 for just the console. You're not getting the disc drive that you want with it. You're not getting any of the plates that you want with it because the existing plates don't fit, even though they are the same size. You're not getting a Pro controller with it. You're not getting a vertical stand with it. Like it's a $699 starting price, and that's half of most people's monthly wage. So that's the sort of difference you're seeing between us and Japan. Like Japan, it just makes sense because it's so close to the price of the base console. In the US, God knows how any of those sales work. Why you don't just add taxes on the bloody sticker, I don't know, and you have to do mathematics before you get to the till. It's just a moronic way of doing things, but you're used to that over there, and apparently you guys have got more money to throw around than we do. So you guys can go out and just purchase them as you did with the PS4 Pro.
And that's what it is. Different countries have different economies, and then you see them play out when big market movers like this drop. So interesting to see how it's reacting in Japan, US, and UK with discounting PS5 Pros already for Black Friday. Cool stuff. and make sure that you have a use case for the Pro before you get it, would be my advice. Now, the next one I wanted to talk about may spark some controversy between the two of us here. But the Game Awards, which are... sorry. The Game Awards, which are confirming DLC and remasters can win Game of the Year days prior to the nominations reveal. So this is a brand new sort of setting they put on, or rule set they put on to the Game Awards nominations. Now, what I'm thinking is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree was the pinnacle gaming experience this year, and every gaming outlet pleaded to have this game as Game of the Year, and Jeff Keighley just said, you know what, fine, it is that great. Hung up the phone, and now DLC is included. We saw last year with Resident Evil 4 being included, and that was a remake. I have explicit things against remakes and remasters because I believe that that same gameplay mechanic loop that was invented years ago was just remastered, remade for the exact same year. So it's not a new idea, and it's not original to that year. Dorgon, how do you feel about remasters or DLC being able to enter the Game of the Year category?
Hell to the no. To go a bit more nuanced, I have no problem with a remake. A remake is a whole new game that has been created. It's a whole team that has had to work on it for multiple years to get it off the ground, to get it made. It's what we're seeing with Metal Gear Solid Delta at the moment. Yes, it's Metal Gear Solid 3, so your storyboarding, your voice acting, and all that sort of stuff has already been done for years. But everything else has been built in a new engine with mechanics that look and feel the same, but they definitely aren't the same, because if you compare the two, the new one's much better. So I kind of don't have as much of a problem with a remake being included, especially if you're a little bit thin on the ground for quality otherwise. For DLC to be included, that's not a game. You can't just go and buy that game. I can't go and buy Shadow of the Erdtree and just play Shadow of the Erdtree. I have to buy Elden Ring and then Shadow of the Erdtree. That is a double purchase. That is, need that base game that came out 2 years ago to play that DLC. That is not a game. That is additional content. That is the chips to my steak. That is the peppercorn sauce to my steak. It is a little bit extra that adds to the original whole sort of thing. There is no way DLC should be included in Game of the Year. And the only reason it has been included is Jeff Keighley makes the rules up as he goes along. He wants to include Shadow of the Erdtree because he likes Shadow of the Erdtree, and he has this bias towards games from this company, the same as he does towards a lot of Sony titles. So he's going to add it in because he thinks it should be there, and he's going to then try and justify it by saying, oh yeah, these sort of things can always be in there. Remasters can be in there. Remakes can be in there. DLC can be in there. It's bull crap, to put it politely, is how I feel about it, and it just undermines everything the Game Awards stands for. They are not the pinnacle of the gaming industry. There is no body overlooking them to make sure that they are impartial or proper about what they do, and it just completely makes them irrelevant in my eyes. Like, they weren't exactly relevant anyway, because they're never held at a time of day that's useful for anything outside of the US. But now with this, it just undermines the whole thing they've been trying to build for the past 10 years and completely nullifies anything they have to say in my eyes.
That being said, we have different opinions on this. I will say that I have played and completed Shadow of the Erdtree, and I don't think that buying the base game should be a barrier. I mean, you have to buy the console to play any game anyways, so just having a purchase. I think when the majority of gamers have played this DLC, I think we had over 5 million purchase it on launch, which outweighs a lot of games that even released this year. And when the game is actually a 60-hour closed experience, which takes you away from Elden Ring's main story, I think that it does deserve it. I actually made a video here on Cloud&Console a couple months back saying, should Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree win Game of the Year? Can it be nominated? And I
No.
argued for those points.
You
Being
are
the
a
greatest experience that anyone has gamed on this year, scoring the highest Metacritic score with the most amount of people contributing to it. These are the metrics that people look at for nominations.
Do you hear yourself when you speak, or do you find you drift in and out? Because on the one hand, you're like, no, Resident Evil 4 should not have been in Game of the Year awards last year. It's a remake. But I can put DLC in there, but because, just having to buy a game and DLC isn't a barrier to entry, even though this is one Game of the Year, but it's not a game, it's an additional extra. You need to buy that very expensive thing first to then buy that very expensive thing. Hypocrisy thy name is.
Well, you didn't play it. You didn't play it, so it's hard for you to comment on it. When you play the experience, you can see from beginning to end how it sets itself apart from something called a DLC. It goes above and beyond. Now, remakes and remasters, Final Fantasy VII is a category of its own, but when it comes to remakes and remasters, like you said, you're copying the same storyboard. You're copying the same gameplay mechanics and loop. You're staying true to the original stuff that was invented years ago. So it's an old idea being remade.
You're
And
literally having an argument with yourself.
When you have a new idea with new story, new characters, new elements, that is something different. And when you create something
But
as
it's made in
pinnacle
the
of an
same engine, the
experience,
same mechanics.
but when
It's
you
not new.
it is new. It is, well, when you have played it. If you've played Elden Ring and you've played Shadow of the Erdtree, then you can have an opinion that is all encompassing here, because it is an experience that takes you outside
No.
of the game.
I am throwing your own arguments back at you here. That's all I'm doing. It's not new. It's the same mechanics. It's the same engine. It's exactly the same as what
It's a new
Elden
story.
Ring was.
It's a new story. It's a new
Still
progression.
the same.
It's not the same. Then you would know if you had played and completed.
Your argument falls down when you try and go against it. It's either all or nothing in my eyes. And if I don't think DLC should be included, I don't think remakes and remasters should be included. Remasters especially, they are literally just a HD coat of paint on an existing title. They don't change anything else. Remakes, I'm a little more squiffy on. But again, like you say, it's already been done. The game has got this cult following already. It's why it's been remade for a new audience to buy again, because they know it's a surefire thing. And if they can't be included, downloadable content that cannot be played without the base game purchase cannot be included. You can have a category for best expansion of the year, or best downloadable content of the year, best additional content of the year, best something else. It can be a different category. They should be recognized, because there's a lot of work that goes into these things. And for me, Final Shape really rounded out what 10 years of Destiny was. It was an excellent addition to the game, but it's an expansion. It's not an original release, so it can't be considered for Game of the Year, but it could be considered for best expansion. It should be a different category. Game of the Year is about the individual base games released in that calendar year, of which we have got a ruck of great options. There is no way that DLC should be considered for the ultimate Game of the Year award.
Typically, I'd agree with you, but once you taste something as good, experience what From Software did, how they set them apart from every DLC that's come before them, you can't know it until you experience it. And what they did from the moment you entered the Shadow of the Erdtree to the second you close that chapter in a closed experience, you knew that this was something special, epic, and beyond the ordinary.
Take Shadow of the Erdtree out of the equation, because that is obviously giving you a bias in your thoughts at the moment. And as a whole, as an industry, should we be able to recognize DLC from any game, remasters from any game, remakes from any game, all three of them combined, should they be considered for Game of the Year every single year?
I would say absolutely not, unless you are Shadow of the Erdtree and you've
No,
created an
you can't.
experience.
You can't create a loophole in that. If you're going to have a trustworthy awards ceremony, one that is held up as a industry pinnacle, it has to be that line in the
Then
sand.
remakes and remasters get axed and DLCs get included, and DLCs are included when
All
they
or
reach.
nothing.
No,
No.
I'm not
No.
listening to your rules. This isn't Brexit. Listen, I can do what I want. I'm Canada. I can deal with Britain and I can deal with the US.
You
I can
literally
deal with
can't do
Japan.
anything you want without your neighbors say so.
But in this situation, I think if you've played Shadow of the Erdtree, you can tell that it's something special. It sets itself apart.
It might
Remakes
be
and
very special,
remasters
but it's
are
DLC.
recycled ideas.
As per your own words, DLC can't be included. The only reason you are wanting to include it is because Shadow of the Erdtree is excellent. And I'm not denying its quality at all. I'm not denying the quality of the expansion.
Exactly.
But
Shadow
it
of the
is
Erdtree
that.
is enough content to constitute a sequel. And I think you will
It might
know
be,
that
but
if
it's
you've
not.
played it.
But it's not a sequel. It is an expansion. Just the same way as you can't take the expansion to Prince of Persia:
Blood
The Lost
and
Crown
Wine,
as an
Witcher
expansion.
DLC won Best RPG in the Game Awards.
Yes, it was a different category. It was not the Ultimate Game of the Year. It couldn't be nominated in Ultimate Game of the Year because it was DLC. And it had way more content than many of the games that were in the Game of the Year category. This is what I mean. If you add that in this year, if you allow Shadow of the Erdtree to be nominated for Ultimate Game of the Year when it's not a game, it's not a sequel, it is downloadable content, it undermines everything that the Game Awards have worked to make for the past 10
You're such
years.
an absolutist. No, play the content and then you can see that it sets itself apart. It's different than regular DLC. And I think that's what you want to recognize. You want to recognize a lot of hard work going into an entertainment product. And I think that's a product that stands on its own feet.
Let's take this another way. If you go into an ice hockey rink, just pick your stick up and wang it around someone's head, that shouldn't be a penalty, should it? Because you like the violence and it benefits your team.
I don't know what you're saying here, Dorgon.
That is what I'm saying is doing
That's
such
not
a
relatable.
thing. It's completely relatable. Bear with. Going into that rink with your hockey stick and wrapping it around someone's head is illegal by the rules of the game. Yes? You cannot do that in the game. Those are the rules.
That's assault, so that's breaking the law. There's no equivalency here.
Rules.
You're not breaking the law by creating DLC. It's not. It's a false equivalency.
The rules of the Game Awards in all previous years have been that DLC cannot be considered for Ultimate Game of the Year. If you change that just so Shadow of the Erdtree, because it is such high quality, can be included, you are breaking the rules of your own game. That's what Jeff Keighley's doing here.
Well,
and that shouldn't be done.
I don't want to be like America and never change my constitution in 150 years. I think as times evolved, as products and market approaches to finances and gaming evolve, like creating a different game on itself would have been less of a market risk than creating Shadow of the Erdtree as a DLC. Like there's different financial structures that come into play when releasing this content. And I don't think that should hamper
with the Game of the Year awards.
I don't think that should hamper something being qualifying as a Game of the Year if in itself the content is so great it outweighs any other piece of entertainment that was released this year. And Metacritic and tons of people shouting from
who gives a
damn
about Metacritic? It's people who are paid off by these people to give it good reviews.
That's what these Game Awards are based off of.
No,
we may
it's
hate
not.
the reviews, but
it's
that's
a
where they
panel
come
of Jeff
from.
Keighley's friends. That's what the Game Awards are. It's a panel of Jeff Keighley's friends that he likes and trusts that get together to give the awards. It is not based off any external source.
It's news outlets putting in their nominations. That's why we read it from Polygon and their confusion of when they put in their information that the nominations had revealed that DLC was included. So it is coming from news outlets and people reviewing and reporting on games. I just
You
think
mean those same people who were paid to give Veilguard a 10 out of 10?
I mean, this is the system that we are using. So
Okay,
there's
what
other
about...
game awards. There's other game awards if you want to pay attention to those.
Well,
I mean,
this one wants to
this
be the
is that one.
pinnacle. It wants to be the top of it. It wants to be the one that everybody pays attention to, and it's just undermined itself completely.
To some,
Change the
for
rules
sure,
to suit someone's
but
whim.
regardless, everyone will be tuning into it. Everyone will be buying the advertisement time on here. And then I would just recommend play Shadow of the Erdtree. It is a pinnacle experience this year, and literally a standalone. It could be a sequel to Elden Ring. I just think the financial mechanisms they used to release this content was through a DLC on Elden Ring. But
we're not going to agree on this because you're just wrong.
We're not going to agree on this because I'm not just wrong. Dorgon has his point of view and I have my point of view, and they come to a head. So
mine's based on the rules set out by the Game Awards and then breaching said rules. It's like F1 2021. They literally breached the rules of the sport to undermine the entire excellent season. We've had an excellent year of gaming, and then these guys come along and undermine the rules of the awards season just to satisfy a whim.
And my opinion and point of view comes from a gamer who's experienced all the titles on the list for the nominations and said to myself through my experience that this game sets itself apart from any standalone game. And it should be recognized for what it is. When people put their work into creating something new, a brand new experience that sets itself apart, it should be recognized.
It's not a game, though. You can't go out and buy it outright.
By definition of a game, you can play it. So it is a game.
Can you buy Shadow of the Erdtree on its own without anything else?
You can't go and buy Astrobot on its own. You need a PlayStation to play the Astrobot. Like, there's a barrier to everything.
You are splitting some ridiculous hairs here. If you are buying a game, you already have the platform to play it upon, unless you're a granny who doesn't understand these things. This is the part of the show
where you agree to disagree, and we end it.
No, not when you are this far off base.
This is why there is Brexit. I'm sorry, Britain. Canada gets along with everyone, and
this is what we ought to stay spiky.
But that's our show this week. I've got to head off to the bank. Thanks everyone for tuning in this week. I do appreciate.
Oh, they can't give you money anymore. It's not included in it. You can't go to the bank. Sorry, no, not anymore. Rules don't allow it. Suddenly.
Yes,
Someone on the whim said you can't go in.
He's a little bitter. It's fine. It's fine. Because in Canada, we are very agreeable. We're very opening and welcoming. And we just want to put our hand out.
Different.
Agree to disagree. But it wasn't effective. Yeah, I rolled a 1, apparently, on that one. But,
no, that was a nat 0, mate. It's not even on the dice, but you still rolled it.
Yeah. Regardless, Dorgon, play the game and then make your judgments. Until next time, we'll take care and we'll see you later.
Take care, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
To believe in me. Why try do I even need to? I die with the season leaves. I glide with the season breeze. True, my mind so easily spooked. I ride just to be the me. but it's sick as bitch.